Hopefully everyone's checked in. This time, if you'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Supervisor Powers.
Creator of all things, lover of all humankind, we remember the many March observances: International Women's Day and National Women's History Month, Employee Appreciation Day, St. Patrick's Day, World Down Syndrome Day, International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, Red Cross Month, World Hearing Day. Guide us forward and show us ways we can respond to and show our support of the people impacted by these annual observations. Soften our hearts to live and work collegially for the benefit of our county. Amen.
I need someone for the approval for the adoption of this evening's agenda. Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. This time will be allowed for persons present to express their opinions on any resolution or ordinance that appears on the agenda, as well as any matter over which this body has jurisdiction. Pursuant to Rule 6.4 of the Rules of Winnebago County Board, you may have 2 minutes to speak at that time. So if you would like to speak, come forward to one of the microphones, state your name and address. Anyone at all wishing to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom? Okay, that part is closed. Communication from County Clerk. And they don't have any. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. I don't see any. Oops. Supervisor Bender.
I was at the legislation conference last week, and it was interesting. Pretty much a lot of the same stuff, the SNAP program, the Medicaid, and this year they threw in the Social Security. In 2027, the federal government will go from paying 50% of the administration cost to 25%. So that means that the counties are going to pick up an extra 25% of that cost. And we'll probably need more people because we'll have to basically, with the SNAP program, be checking on making sure that people are working and they have to work 20 hours a week. So that's going to be added cost to us. And then when I talked to them about Social Security, in 2033, Social Security, the trust fund will be out of money. And right now it costs about $1.6 trillion for Social Security. So when I was at Capitol Hill, I talked to a couple of the congressmen and just asked them if they had a plan on how they were going to shore that trust fund up. And their thought is that they're working on building a strong economy and they're not really looking into the Social Security. I suggested to them they have 7 years, maybe like if the employer and the employee each paid 0.5% and we maybe took the cap from 183,000 to 250,000, and if we maybe raised the age by a year, it would have 7 years for that money to grow, and it would extend it maybe to 2040. But they said that they really weren't concerned about that right now, that when that fund runs out of money, they thought the federal government would just pick that tab up. So I guess maybe that's good news, maybe that's bad news, but there's 3 more elections before the 2033, so more than likely those congressmen won't be in office.
Supervisor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a reminder again of an announcement I made at our last meeting that the County Veterans Service Commission will not be meeting this month due to inability to have a quorum, and that'll go for what we call our early meeting, which is the Commander's Call meeting, and also the Veterans Commission meeting will not be taking place this month. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else with a report? Seeing any, we'll close that part. Okay, county executives report, we have several people missing tonight. Supervisor Holt, Ranky, Facetto, Vice Chairman Fari is in pretty bad shape, so that's why he's not here. Possibly Supervisor Stafford might be coming in late, so I think I've got them all. She didn't call in, so. Did I miss anybody? Okay. All right. County Board Chair's report. This is something I didn't want to talk about, but I'm going to have to. We've got people that go ahead, they ring in, they get their 2 minutes out in the audience to speak. At that time, nobody from in front of there should be talking, say aye, yes, no, or anything. They have their 2 minutes. When they're done speaking, if you want to go around behind and say something else or whatever, but we do not speak to them at that time, or we do not speak to any of them about anything. And I would hope that you all respect that. They respect us. They don't break in, other than maybe a few every now and then, but so that's something hopefully you would all keep in mind, whether I'm up here later on or not, but do not break in on them people. They're there for a reason. They sign in, they say their name, their address, they're on tape and everything. So please do not do that. There is no reason for that. No one, anyone in front of the glass or in front of that there should not be saying anything to anyone. So, okay, I do not have any. Next will be our presentations. The ICE update from Sheriff Motz.
You can hit the next slide. Okay, so I know this has been an item that we have spoke on several times at Judiciary, and we now do a monthly update to Judiciary. We gave in January 5th, we gave basically the same presentation that you're about to get. At the end, we're going to talk a little bit about January and February and what we have seen as far as involvement with ICE or with those that have detainers placed on them, ICE detainers. So you will get the most current information. We're going to continue to do that monthly update at Judiciary. It'll be in the Sheriff's report. Not necessarily something that we're going to come back here, every month and give you. If you ever want to know what it is, please call me, watch the Judiciary meeting, and you can get it right from there. So we signed on to the 287G program April of last year. We had been honoring ICE detainers for 25 plus years, as long as I can remember. I was a jail sergeant back in 2000, and I recall having people placed on ICE detainers at that time. The 287G program actually started in 1996, but it never was an item that people talked about. It was just another federal agency that we worked with, that we honored detainers such as federal marshals when we work with the FBI or we work with DEA or any of the other federal agencies. So it never caused any stir or any questions like it has now. And it truly is no different, other than we have shored up some of our procedures, but everything has stayed the same. And we're going to go through what those numbers are and how we got to where we're at. Next slide. There's 3 models. The jail enforcement model, which we do not participate in. It requires us to have dedicated people working in the jail to assist with the interview interrogation process of those that have illegal, or those that are held on ICE detainers. The task force model, which is the street enforcement, we do not participate in that, and we have no plan to do either of those two models. What we do participate in is the warrant service officer. What that does is there's training that some of our deputies went through, and Captain Rozek is going to talk about that training and what that all does for them, or what it gives them the ability to do. But basically, we are able to explain the detainer to the individual and have that detainer placed on the person. Remember a few things as we go through this. The only people that have detainers placed on them are people who are brought to our jail on criminal charges. There is no street level enforcement. We are not asking anybody if they're here legally or proof of citizenship. Those things are not happening. It's just people that are brought to our jail. And you will see that the amount of detainers that are placed on, based on the number of bookings that we had into the jail, are maybe much less than what you anticipated. I'm going to have Amber now take the next couple slides.
So currently within the jail, we have 16 deputies that have completed the 7-hour online training and have been credentialed as warrant service officers. These deputies, they're authorized to issue the Homeland Security warrant for arrest of alien form I-200. I know that doesn't really mean anything to anybody, but at the time that they're completed with us and they're ready for release, we will complete this form when ICE has arrived to pick them up. That's what our warrant service officers do, is they issue that paperwork. So what it does is it delegates federal immigration authority to us. It provides us some coverage and liability because we're acting under the scope of the federal government when we are administering these warrants to the people that are in our custody. There is no financial incentive for this program. The training was free. It just took on-duty time for the deputies to complete that. So this is our statistics for last year total. We had 4,893 bookings. Of those bookings, 228 were born outside of the U.S., and we made notifications to ICE on 151 of them. ICE placed detainers on 17 of them, and by the end of the year, we had turned over 10 of them to ICE, 4 of them with their detainer to another agency, and that we had a remaining 3 at the end of the year. So out of the 228, there was 151 that showed that their status was subject to further investigation. And that's because some of them that are born outside of the U.S. are here legally, refugee status, visas, and that. So out of all of those people, ICE was only interested in 17 of them. This just gives you a breakdown of where the arrests were coming from. Like the sheriff had said, these were all people that came to our facility legally detained on other criminal charges. And again, this is just a breakdown of who was bringing those individuals in.
Could you go those abbreviations?
I'm sorry?
Could you go those abbreviations?
Sure. I'm gonna go back. First one is initial appearances that happen here at the courthouse. Oshkosh Police Department, Winnebago County Sheriff's Office, Fox Crossing, Neenah, Menasha, people that turned into our agency, people that were transported by our agency. The 2 writs, meaning that they came to us from another agency because they had court dealings here in our county. State Patrol, Omro PD, Prisoner Transport Service, so we had arranged for pickup far away, that was for our county. Winneconne PD, Appleton PD, and then Probation and Parole. So this slide is pretty hard to read, but this just gives you a breakdown of the date that the people were booked, their place of birth, the notes that we received from ICE when we did our query, the charges that they were sitting in jail on with us, if they were turned over, and the arresting agency. So you just look at the numbers at the bottom, that gives you just a breakdown of why these people had detainers placed, or what charges they had. 7 of them were OWI related, 4 of them were crimes against person, 2 of them were other agency only, 2 of them were homicide, 1 theft, and 1 fleeing and eluding. So there's been a little bit of confusion when we talk about financials and what we're getting out of our cooperation with ICE. There is a separate program that we participate in, which is the SCAP program, the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program, which is managed by the state. This is separate from ICE. So the monies we receive from this grant have nothing to do with our cooperation with ICE. This is a separate funding that's provided by the state, reimbursing us for holding people that are born outside of the U.S., and they have to meet a criteria. So when we prepare for the SCAP grant, it takes several different agencies to put the information together. Once we gather this information, we send it off to a company that's called Justice Benefits Incorporated, JBI. They process all of the data for us at a cost of $2,500 a year and send the money or the information off to the state for us to be processed. And when we receive the grant funds, we place them into the jail assessment fund, and they're used for items for the inmate population: hygiene, clothing, TVs, recreational items. And right now, our 5-year average of funding received is about 20 grand a year. So again, this is completely separate from our cooperation with ICE, but when we talk about financials, this was questioned because it is a part of a criminal alien program. Completely separate. This is something we've been participating in for well over 25 years and is outside the scope of working with ICE.
So basically, just to summarize this slide, when we make decisions at the sheriff's office, we make those decisions what's in the best interest of public safety for everyone in the county. And that is why we cooperate at the level that we do with ICE, with those that are in our jail. Understand that no one is in the jail for just an ICE detainer. They are there on criminal charges with an ICE detainer. When they're finished with those charges, whether it's their bond is posted or they've sat their sentence or whatever the case might be, and there's a detainer, ICE comes to get them. And then they go through that process. When you saw some of the charges that individuals were being held on, they may seem very minor to you. However, there's a lot more to that story. Some of them are already in the deportation process. Some of them had been deported in the past, crossed again. So there's a lot more to the story, and there's more criminal history that may exist. So we only get the little bit that we send in and the response from ICE. Last year, what we saw was the 155 notifications to ICE, 17 detainers. That's little less than 13% of the 155. Next slide. So January, the month of January, we had 407 bookings. 25 people born outside of the USA, 13 notifications, and 3 detainers placed. The 6th number was the 3 holdovers from the year before. February, and the next slide is what they were being held for. And then February, 361 bookings, 21 notifications. 21 bookings of persons born outside the U.S., notifications 9, detainers placed 3, and we had made some transfers to ICE during that time. Persons held as of February 28th in our facility with ICE detainers was 4. And then the next slide shows what those individuals were being held for criminally, and why the detainer was placed. I'll take any questions. That's it in a nutshell.
Supervisor Nussbaum?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for the presentation. Were there 2 homicides committed by illegal aliens in this county?
There were 2 individuals that are being held on homicide charges, yes, that have detainers placed on them that were here illegally.
That's disturbing.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, I had 2 questions. One, that 20,000 plus that is a grant to cover hygiene, linens, and so on, I don't know how to judge that. Is that enough? Do you feel like that's enough to cover that? It's not.
Well, with the number of people that maybe we hold that are here illegally, it might be, but not for the whole jail. We still have a budget for the other hygiene items.
Okay.
Because when you're looking at, our total population, that's a very large population. 20,000 doesn't cover hygiene items.
That's what I was thinking. Okay. My second question was, where you say place of birth, Mexico, Honduras, so on, do you list people who were born in some other country but have become citizens?
No,
Or
if,
these are only people
yeah.
with not a citizenship?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're here legally, so you saw that there were 220 that were not born in the U.S. and only 155 notifications made to ICE. Those 70 are probably here on work visas, student visas, et cetera. And then there are people that were born outside the U.S. but here legally. We don't even list them as a person that would be in those numbers.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Supervisor Lux.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for giving this presentation 3 times now.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple more questions. The first one is, and I just noticed this 3rd time. You're calling it a program, but newspapers always call it a contract. And so I'm wondering if you did contract with the federal government, and what that entails on your side. Does that mean that, any inmates that you book in have to be reported to the federal government? How long that contract lasts for? The more details of the contract.
Yeah, it's called the Warrant Service Officer Program, but we did sign a contract to be in the program. Amber can explain the specifics, like how long it is, and we have to do we have to run people through the portal to determine whether or not they are a legal citizen, and then we report to them the ones that are not here legally, or that are not citizens. So that's what basically the contract says.
Let me elaborate on that then, because that's another question that I have. And I'm not saying that I want us to be a sanctuary city. I'm just trying to figure out how the contract works. Does a sanctuary city, and I'm just picking Madison, I have no idea if Madison is actually sanctuary, do they just not put people into that same database? Because counties don't have to report their inmates to the federal government. Only state prisoners have to be reported to the federal government. And so I'm just wondering what we do differently than Hennepin County.
Sure.
So, part of the contract, there is no reporting requirement. We keep track of this data that we provide to you guys to be transparent in what we're doing. Our process, since being credentialed, the only change of it is we put them through the portal. And so the spreadsheets that you saw with all the information, most of that is came from our SCAP grant information that we collect. This here, if we get a response back from ICE that says they're subject to removal, they're not here legally, or they've been part of the deportation process, then we say, okay, hey, we have this guy. And they tell us if they want them or not. That is the process, and that's always been the process. The only difference now is we have been trained and we have the credentials to administer paperwork.
I guess my question really is, what's the difference between what we do here with the 287G program and what Hennepin County does not do that we do? Do you know?
I don't know what Hennepin County does,
Okay.
to be honest with you. I don't know what their participation is.
I will tell you that I talked to one of the non-participating counties
Yes,
on the way here.
that's what I'm wondering.
On the way here, one in the state of Wisconsin. Their information is available, just like ours is through Vine or other resources. You can find out who's in our jail by just going online. That is available. So what ICE may do is look at those individuals, and they run their own people, and they will wait for them outside the jail upon release. Other counties that aren't really participating in the program will give a 30-minute notification, and then ICE has 30 minutes to get there. So there are ways to participate without being part of the 287G program, that's true, but there's also some additional liability that you take on when you do that. And we signed into the 287G program to reduce that liability, because we've talked about this before. This is not a warrant signed by a judge, right? This is a detainer placed by a law enforcement agency, a federal law enforcement agency. So because we have the training and we're working under the color, so to speak, of ICE, because we've had the training so we can issue the detainer, we are given some liability. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
I have more questions, but I will get back into the role.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Supervisor Gilbertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had one real question. Could you go over the difference of the U.S. Department Homeland Security warrant versus the judicial warrant, please?
Well, one is what we're dealing with here is an ICE detainer, which is a detainer placed by a federal law enforcement agency, and a judicial warrant is signed by a judge. So that's the difference.
Okay, thank you.
Not everybody we arrest have warrants, just so you understand. There are times when Appleton PD will ask us to take somebody into custody on a domestic. They don't have a warrant in the system yet, but we take them into custody and we turn them over to them. So there are occasions where we do things for other law enforcement agencies outside of the federal government that there is not a judicial warrant for.
Supervisor Bureau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to summarize a question I have, does participation in this program and working with ICE make Winnebago safer for its citizens?
Yes.
Okay. The second question I have, as you went through the stats as far as last year and year to date, I think there's a misnomer, particularly in the press, that local police are just picking up anybody that doesn't look similar to everybody else. When I see what you have here, we're concentrating on people who've committed an offense in some fashion. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it has to be a jailable offense.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Supervisor Hancock Cook.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Sheriff Motz. I know we've chatted about this quite a lot. I just wanted to check into, I had two questions. How many homicides are there annually in Winnebago County?
It varies. I couldn't tell you by, I don't know. I'm looking at Darren back there because he's my field services guy. Last year, if you include the vehicular homicides, there's more than what you think. I don't have that information. I can send it to you, but I don't have it
I was just wondering, in
offhand.
terms of, we had two ICE retainers who were in jail for a homicide, and I wondered how many other people might be in
Yep.
our jails for a
A
homicide.
very valid question. I don't have the answer, though. What? About 6.
Okay. Data says about 10 per 10,000, 100,000 population.
I'm talking about the current jail population.
Current jail pop. Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Then, and then the other question I had was around the SCAP grants. When do you do the funding? When do you request it? How long does it take to come to us? That kind of stuff.
It's about a 3-month process. It happens the same time every year. Usually in the spring, we start gathering, in the fall, we submit, and then by the end of the year, we see the funding come in.
Okay. And so when the SCAP grants, you are filing requests for reimbursement for every night someone who is held on an ICE retainer is in jail?
Nothing to do with ICE.
Or what do they help? It's just foreign national?
Yeah, they look at to see what their citizenship status is. It has to be at least a felony or
My
two
time is still going down and she's answering my
I'm
question.
watching it, so.
Thanks.
Okay. 2 misdemeanors, 1 felony, and at least 4 consecutive nights in the facility for them to qualify for the reimbursement.
Okay, so not necessarily, so it could be a legal resident, but of foreign national, but it has, or does it have to be a person who is here illegally?
Non-citizen.
Just a non-citizen?
Yes.
So anybody who has become a refugee and is refugee status, that also counts?
Don't quote me on that, because there's
'Cause
another
the thing
lieutenant.
I'm curious about is when we've asked it about how many people have been turned over to ICE who would be illegal here, not under legal circumstances.
Yes.
There's no records, except there's clearly records for the last 5 years of you filing for how many nights people who are not legal aliens are in jail. So I would assume that you could make some assertion about how many people that would have been in the last 5 years.
I can tell you what our records say. When we send them to JBI, they condense all that information, and then the state determines. So we may say there's 800 people, but the state's like, no, there's actually only 600 that qualify.
Right.
So there would be a discrepancy in those numbers, but I could have those put together if you would like.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of, over the last number of years,
Sure.
as the sheriff has said, we've been doing this for a long time, but have no clear data about how many it's been. And I wondered if that SCAP data might be able to help us understand that.
I don't think that's going to help you understand it, because it's not going to indicate how many were turned over to ICE. So as Amber indicated, there could be 400 individuals that qualify for the SCAP grant reimbursement, but yet we only turned over 17 to ICE. I mean,
Right.
that's using last year, right?
Right.
So it's really not going to give you an indication. It is much higher, the SCAP piece of it, than
Yeah.
what, which is totally separate, and
Yep.
has nothing to do with ICE or detainers. So it's really not going to tell you anything. And again, we didn't keep any data in the past because it never raised an eyebrow. It was another federal agency that we turned somebody over to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your help.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. Couple things. I guess I'm just going to say it's a rumor that I heard that Milwaukee County might be building or renovating a ICE detention center. Do you know about that?
I haven't heard that.
And if, I guess it would be ICE that would would they come to the sheriff and say, hey, we're interested in building a detention center here? And would that be under your jurisdiction to say yes or no?
Well, I don't personally have much interest in, I think we have enough correctional facilities here. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be doing this job forever, but
I get
yeah.
that. I just, again, this is, a little bit of hearsay, but, obviously from these numbers, it doesn't seem like there's a huge problem in Winnebago County. So I wouldn't think that it would be a place for that. But again, these are just things that you hear in the public, and, with your background, didn't know if there was any truth or you heard anything on the street about that.
Yeah, not that I don't recall that Milwaukee was going to renovate anything, but it could be. I mean, Brown County has they are an ICE facility, so they can house ICE detainee persons who are just held on ICE detainers. Waukesha, Dodge, those are the 3 that I can think of. So they use part of their jail, and it creates a revenue stream for them, et cetera. But
Got it.
yeah,
Okay.
we're good. We
Okay.
got enough people in our jail.
Okay, thank you very much.
Supervisor Luck, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just, so right now, you both have assured me that when you've got somebody as a detainer for ICE and they're going to be picked up by ICE, that OWI, it's not just OWI, it's some other criminal. And your real proof is, look at the numbers are so low. What if, in the future, those numbers jump to 50% or 80%? Would you reevaluate whether or not it was appropriate for you to participate in the program anymore? Or would you just trust the feds?
Yeah, we would continue to be in the program. I mean, if someone is here illegally, they commit crimes, whatever they might be, yeah, we will honor the detainer from ICE. But again, you're doing a very what-if kind of thing. You know,
Except for we kind of saw this happening.
well, did you? I'm not sure that we did, because I've talked to people and, you know, been accused of being ignorant because I refuse to get on social media and follow every expert there is, apparently, and watch national news and all the other pundits that say all kinds of stuff. I think I just live it and pay very close attention to what's happening here and in our area. That's what I can control, and that's what I am most concerned about. What's happening in Minneapolis, what I did see, the small amount, yeah, it did not look good, but is that the whole story? I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the whole story. There's a criminal an investigation that's going on to determine whether or not use of force was appropriate. We'll find out, and people may be held liable criminally for that, and as they should if it's deemed to be not reasonable. But then again, it may be. So there's a lot of what ifs, and I know I went off on a tangent, but the answer is yes, we will still honor the detainers. There's a lot more to the story than what you just see here with the disorderly conduct or criminal damage to property.
OWI.
Or
is
OWI.
Specifically what I'm looking
It's a very serious, if you had my job and you went to OWI fatality where there's multiple victims, you would think, boy, I would, a disorderly conduct or...
I agree. I personally have never driven after drinking even a drink, because every single male in my family has driven after drinking, except for the one that doesn't drive.
Yeah, so, I can't determine what is serious and what is not. How would I do that? Because now we're getting into whether or not we're going to keep somebody and not turn over this one, not turn over that one. You talk about liability and civil liability, that's where it really comes into play. So, okay?
Supervisor Bureau, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So here's one more hypothetical for you. I'm a illegal alien with a criminal background. That's the life I know. Would I come to a county in a state that has the 287 cooperation, or would I go somewhere else that doesn't have that? Where would I go?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I honestly believe by participating in the Warrant Service Officer Program, we have done what we need to do in this county so there isn't street-level enforcement. When the counties that were recently in the news, they did not allow ICE in their jails and did not report. So I think there's some benefit there as well.
Thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Second time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. If I were arrested and taken to your jail, and I said I was American citizen born in this country but not in Wisconsin, how do I prove that? How do you know that?
We have that information in the portal.
In the portal, what is that?
What we run you through.
So there is a portal that's available to us that we can check citizenship, but the only way we can check it is we have to enter a criminal charge.
Okay.
We can't run anybody through the portal without a criminal charge associated with them.
Okay.
So that's what we do when the people come into our facility. We run them through that portal to determine what their citizenship is.
Okay. Just wondered. Thank you.
Supervisor Hancock Cook, second time.
Thank you, Chairman Egan. And I have a couple more questions relative to, I think the big confusion we all have is that we are detaining people in our jail who have been brought there for cause. Now, they're not convicted, so we don't know that they're guilty, but they have been brought there by cause. And then we say, okay, you're brought here by cause. We can't determine that you're an American citizen or a resident who gets to stay here. We'll call ICE and turn you over. That's detaining versus the concern that we're hearing some of internment camps and buying property and creating large areas where we are going to be housing maybe illegal, maybe criminals, maybe not, just people we don't want to have here in the United States. So I think that we're assuming that that's you. It clearly isn't. I wanted to clarify that it is, again, it's crimes, accused of crimes and not convictions that we're talking about. So we don't know if these are dangerous people. We assume they are. They probably wouldn't come to the sheriff's attention otherwise. But I also want to say that question or ask a question further on about if they're already in jail, you have them in your possession in the jail, how is it making this safer by turning them over to ICE?
Because we're not releasing them in the community.
Well, if they're in jail, wouldn't
Yeah.
we go, they go through the process
Sure.
of having some, you know, having, like any other criminal that we are releasing into the community?
Sure. But we don't just, somebody gets arrested for disorderly conduct. They have to go to court first, then they get turned over.
Yeah.
So otherwise, we would just be turning them out to the street if they got a signature bond. That's that often what happens with a disorderly conduct. But again, that's that further history that they're looking at is why the detainer was placed. So you're putting somebody out in the community that probably more than 50% chance that they committed that crime of disorderly conduct, and then they have that past that ICE is concerned about, wants to remove them. We have two options. We turn them over to ICE or we put them in the community.
Okay. But if you are a U.S. citizen, you get to have disorderly conduct and be turned back out.
That's correct.
Okay. So what we're doing is we're keeping us safer by not letting out 17 people.
Right.
Got it. I just wanted to make sure it seemed like it was just cost deferment, like, okay, then ICE can take care of holding them in jail versus us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
See no other names up on the board. So I thank you very much. Next up will be the EMS study update.
Good evening. This one will be pretty brief, but we still wanted to use the special orders meeting to kind of give an update on a number of things that the board took action on last year. This was a project that started before I became the executive and comes out of changes from the city of Oshkosh increasing rates for towns served by its EMS program. In December of 2024, the project was approved by the Personnel and Finance Committee through the use of contingency funds, but nothing happened for several months. And in the spring of 2025, an RFP was finally sent out and bids came back higher than anticipated. And in August of 2025, Personnel and Finance approved a budget amendment to cover the cost of the RFP. During the same period, the situation with Oshkosh changed such that the newly formed Southern Winnebago County Emergency the EMS district was losing the ability to purchase coverage from Oshkosh at the higher rate. So a consultant was brought on shortly after the second budget transfer, and their initial and secondary requests for information from all of the EMS providers in the county went unanswered. Concurrently, the Southern Winnebago EMS district entered into a contract with a third party to provide EMS coverage starting in 2026. So in short, this kind of changed the scope of what the study was going to do. We had a number of towns that were going to be impacted, but during the time the study was underway, those towns were able to create a district and resolve their problem effective in January. So this really, kind of changed the scope. We've got a study, we've already paid for it. And we pivoted with the consultant to do site visits, reshape the project, and extend the contract to the end of 2026 with no change in costs, although we expect to have this completed before the end of the year. The consultant was on hand last week to conduct interviews with county staff, local EMS providers, as well as Aurora's medical director. These interviews helped the consultant understand the current landscape, future capacity, relationships between systems, and weaknesses in the current service provision. The consultant, which is Matrix Consulting Group, has completed their scheduled on-site interviews and has scheduled a final few virtual interviews. They've received information from our 911 dispatch center to aid in their analysis and are awaiting some information from the state. And our revised scope is to help forecast future needs and roles the county could play. We'll get recommendations about how the county can prepare for future service charges like we experienced in the county over the last 2 years and be better positioned for the future. Is that it? That's it? So I mean, essentially, you know, at the time the study was done, again, you know, we were facing a lot of our communities in the county with an uncertain future. They were able to reach a resolution, but we know that with labor shortages what they are, with the costs to provide EMS service continuing to go up, that, you know, we're going to be facing this challenge again. I think tonight, both Neenah and Menasha, their city councils are receiving briefings by their EMS provider and they may be evaluating what their costs are going forward. And you might see some movement or shaking in how these districts perform. So, you know, this company, and when I spoke to them, I just sort of said, you know, what do other counties do? Do counties have a role in providing emergency management systems? You know, what kind of shape are we in? Because, you know, I think the Southern District really worked hard at coming up with a resolution that worked well for them. But again, in a few years, you know, we might find ourselves in a different position, and hopefully we can get some use out of this study. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Supervisor Gilbertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we know what some of like the smaller towns are going to have to pay for some of these services? Like the town of Algoma just got theirs for $43-ish, I think. What are some of the other towns looking at?
Yes, I think the town of Algoma reached a deal with for EMS service with the city of Oshkosh. I don't know what the rates ended up being for the Southern District that was created, which, you know, covers Black Wolf, Nicaimai, you know, Utica, Rushford, Omro, town of Omro, Winneconne and Poygan, I believe. But I think their rates went up a little bit, but they were able to, you know, do it and have two ambulances, one in Nicaimai and one in Algoma or Omro, and I've heard it's been working out okay.
Okay, could we have like what those rates are gonna look like so that we all know for the constituents across the area in the
Sure.
future? And that's it, thank you.
Supervisor Plazinski.
I was just gonna speak, the SWEMS, the rate per capita is $39.91.
Okay, so $39.91. Thank you. That's all I had on that one.
Okay. Supervisor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So are there any mutual aid agreements at all between these different communities if something was to come up that exceeds the normal capability of one village? Because I just recently saw an article that was reviewing a 100-vehicle accident that we had on 41 during a winter storm. So you see you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I believe, yeah, the mutual aid agreement with the Southern District and with Oshkosh, you know, exists, I believe. And I think in other parts of the county as well, but I'm not an expert on that. But I know with SWEMS it did.
That's it, nothing further, I was just curious, thank you.
Supervisor Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did find it quite frustrating. The village of Winnebago was offered the best deal to go and hook up with Waushara County offered them the best deal for EMF service, which made me wonder why Winnebago County wasn't doing more. So I appreciate that they're going with the study, and I don't know about the other communities, but it certainly was frustrating how all of those communities got cut off in a very, very short time period from the EMF service through Oshkosh. They had a contract through 26, and they were just told at the end of 25, good luck, find out whatever you can. So hopefully this study's maybe more important than we might realize looking into the future a little bit more. What happened to those communities should not have happened the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, it really could be a changing environment. Again, we're in better position than I think a lot of parts of the state when you look at what's happened to volunteer service coverage in EMS. And in Waushara, is it the county that provides EMS?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, it gets, complicated when you've got a county as diverse as Winnebago and you've got, individual departments. It's municipal run in Oshkosh, but, even the cities like Neenah and Menasha contract out for EMS, but they have combined fire. And then when we would try to think, was that, would countywide EMS even be possible in a, county like Winnebago County? I do think you'll see more functional consolidation of service. I think you'll see more exploration of districts. I really commend the leaders that did the Southern District for coming up with a resolution that they did in pretty short order by collaborating and getting a pretty decent deal to maintain coverage. But, that I agree, that was, right up to the deadline.
Thank you.
Supervisor Plushinsky? Second time.
Thank you. And I will agree with everything that Supervisor Nelson just said. It was 3 months of scrambling to put that together, so hats off to SWEMS and all the people that worked on that. There are 5 different agencies that they do have mutual aid agreements with. It's Oshkosh, Waushara County, Gold Cross, Berlin, and North Fond du Lac. Just to answer that question.
Supervisor Lux?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out that part of Neenah Menasha Fire is actually in Calumet County, so that would make it even more difficult.
I just have a question, and this covers more than the ambulance service. Why does it take so long, and I know you weren't here, why does it take so long for us to get something going? And we have this study, and they ended up having put another $10,000 in to go ahead and do this study, and now you're just reporting on it now.
So the initial delay was that none of the bids came back under the amount that had been approved. So they needed to get additional approval. The next delay was that none of the municipalities and none of the providers would share any information with the consultant at all. So we had trouble getting any data to get the study going. Then it was the reason we were having the study, the problem was resolved, but we couldn't get out of doing the study. So we wanted to try to find meaning in doing the study. And so that's sort of, I'm glad it sounds like everybody has agreed to provide data now, but I don't, disagree. This was going on, and it would have been helpful. I think the big delay was that the RFP couldn't go, we didn't have the money because it came in over, the lowest bid was over the approved amount.
Okay. Supervisor Hintz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in no way saying what I'm going to say defending the city of Oshkosh. I just want everybody to know that. But having been having kept my nose within a lot of this process, the city was losing a lot of money on EMS service by running around the county. They were approaching the 50% mark as far as spending time outside the city and running around the county, which was actually not allowing them to take care of the city of Oshkosh. And the city of Oshkosh people were paying considerably more than the townships were, and therefore they had to make a decision with their budget, because we, as those of us who live in the city of Oshkosh, know the city of Oshkosh has a few budget issues, and they had to make a decision whether to just cut it off and quit hemorrhaging money, or to keep going forward and keep subsidizing and spending more money than they actually were bringing in. So again, I'm not defending the city. I'm not saying what they did was right or wrong. I'm not making any kind of a call like that. I'm just giving more of the reasons of why what happened in the way it happened. It was because the city is not in a great financial spot, and their EMS service was losing money, and they were looking at having to, they have to do a lot of things for the fire departments with their stations in the city and whatnot, and they couldn't keep hemorrhaging that money. So I just wanted everybody to understand where that situation came from, where the decision came from, and it wasn't just pulling the rug out from everybody. It was trying to do what was best for the taxpayers of the city of Oshkosh.
I think there's also a staffing issue. And I think that's one of the things the study's going to look at, just with the aging demographics. It is going to be harder for contracted providers and municipal providers simply to be able to maintain staffing. And if they're going to be significant increase in labor costs to be able to fill those positions.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks. Next up, I'd like to bring up our airport director, Jim Schell, to help with this presentation. This is another issue the board will be asked to make a decision on the March 17th meeting, and we wanted to take some time to talk about the proposal and ensure that board members had a chance to ask questions about the process. You will all have a chance to debate the merits of this proposal in 2 weeks, and tonight's presentation will set the stage for how we got here and what the direction the airport is heading. We've had a lot of thoughtful deliberation by both the aviation and facilities committees, with input from the aviation community that has shaped the proposed rate increases. The facilities committee asked Director Schell and Director Elder to come up with rents based on the standards of the U.S. government's General Services Administration standards, and their findings came back with even higher rates than are proposed here. Ultimately, this question, also is about the amenities that our airport offer, which are second to none in the general aviation, public use airport space, and how we want to recoup our expenses for use of those amenities. Access to 4 paved runways is unique. It means safer takeoffs and landings, because our control tower can route people to not land in crosswind. The control tower is unique. It provides a level of safety that other airports don't, and we have an airport fire and rescue on site. Our rapid response adds a level of safety that pilots at Whitman benefit from, but don't at other general aviation airports. And I want to turn it over to Jim.
All right. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Chairman Egan. Happy to be in front of you today talking about an item that'll be coming up on March 17th, which is our Chapter 21, or the Airport Ordinance update. Primarily, this update is geared towards increasing our hangar rental, land rental, and fuel flowage fees that are published already in Chapter 1 of County Code. At a higher level, we have 94 hangar units that we own and lease out as far as the county is concerned on the airport, and then 31 land leases. So roughly 120 lease agreements between hangar rentals and land leases. Just a little bit of history on Chapter 21. Adjustments to the code and the rates contained therein have happened at a really sporadic, not consistent basis over the last 25 years. I'm not going to go all the way back to the 1970s and 80s, but we have kind of looked at that as well, because some of our hangars have been there since the 70s and the 80s. But since 2001, you can see the history there in your presentation. They went 10 years without a rate adjustment. then about 5 years, then 6, and now 4. So historically, every time that was adjusted and changed in Chapter 21, that was done by a CPI adjustment, a Consumer Price Index adjustment, from the prior update to that next one. Going forward, looking to establish some consistency with the rate adjustments on a 3-year interval and updating, at this point, the county ordinance, but I know we're going to a rates and charges schedule with the recodification process. But at any rate, a 3-year interval on adjusting our rates, and the process generally would be by a CPI adjustment beyond this update. As Gordon mentioned, we were tasked with finding how many airports in the country are like Whitman in respect of 4 paved runways and a control tower. And we were able to find 4, including our own. So we're pretty unique in that regard, and a number of other things that Gordon has already mentioned. But we've got a modern GA terminal facility with a pilot's lounge and our fixed-based operator, FBO, Basler Flight Service. We have really unique access to this little event called AirVenture that really never doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. So our tenants have a really great benefit of being on the airport and being able to take in that event every single year, really have access in a way that a lot of folks don't. So that's a really, I think, a good point to offer as far as another added benefit. And then we do offer the use of our meeting room space in the terminal to existing tenants on a first-come, first-served basis. On this set of rate adjustments, this is intended to be a fair market reset of our rates, which, to my knowledge, has never happened. Some of our rates go back to the 70s and the 80s when those hangars were constructed, mainly the North Tees on the north side of the airport, right off 20th Avenue. They've just really been, like I mentioned before, sporadically increased, not on a consistent basis for many years. And so the other big rate that we're looking to increase is our fuel flowage rate. This was last changed in 2011, and really has fallen behind market conditions and market standards for airports in the state primarily. So the average fuel flowage rate fee for airports of our size in the state is now at 19 cents a gallon. This is a fee paid by Basler Flight Service, or fixed base operator, and we don't set fuel prices for the general public. That's sold by Basler Flight Service. So this is simply a fee to help keep us up with market conditions at similar type airports in the state, and we're proposing to go from 10 cents currently to 15 cents per gallon. We also have strong demand for our hangar space. We have maintain a waiting list of 88 people for hangar space on the airport. And this set of rate adjustments has been a little over a year in progress. We have done a lot of analysis internally with airport staff, finance and administration staff for the county. And then in mid-2025, our finance and administration department contracted for a market hangar rent analysis with a consultant known as Airport Business Solutions. That study was completed in the fall and has constituted a fair basis for the rental rates that are before you on March 17th. So this table, probably easier to see. You've all got a handout, correct? Yep, yeah. Hopefully you can see it up there as well. This table breaks down all of the rate adjustments that are being proposed in the Chapter 21 update. On the left-hand side is the description for each type of rate. The next column over, the current rate. The first four are land rental rates, and then the next set are hangar rental rates, and the bottom one is our fuel flowage rate. It's important to point out that Airport Business Solutions was contracted for analyzing our hangar rents and not our land rental rates or our fuel flowage fee, which were done internally by county and finance staff. And so the first 4 rates are different rates for land rental for development on the airport, which are scheduled to go up as proposed there by a few pennies per square foot annually. Those rates are all annual rates per square foot of land that's leased. The next set is our hangar space, and that's probably the one that's the biggest conversation piece here. We have 12 different rates for our hangar space because we have 12 different types of hangars out in the airport. What that really means is we've got a variety of size, amenities, quality, age, and type of hangar out at the airport. So we really have something, generally speaking, for everybody that's looking for space. And so I think that's a big benefit. That's why there's so many different rates out there or listed in our schedule. We've got A, B, C, and D. those first two columns on that description part make up 40 of our hangar units out of the 94. And those are all built in the 70s and the 80s, but they're serviceable units. They're kind of some of our lower end of the rates, as well as the G&H units, which is the lowest per month hangar rent that we have. And then as far as what we call T hangar spaces, which really just mean they're shaped like a T, kind of like an airplane fits in a T hangar very nicely with the shape of an aircraft. But the G and H units are on the low end, and then the E and F units, as far as a T hangar space, are on our highest end. And the E and F units are our newest hangars that opened in 2024, which have concrete floors, insulated, heated, and big bifold doors. So they're really very nice. I know a number of folks from the Aviation Committee and the Facilities Committee have had a chance to come out and see the hangar spaces. And so we've got a variety of hangar spaces is kind of what we want to drive home there. And so the consultant recommendations are right next to the current rate. And then my set of current proposed recommendations for the hangar or for the rental rates is the next column over. You'll see we don't adopt every single one of the consultants' recommendations, most notably on the D hangars, the G and H hangars, the I hangars, and the J hangar and hangar 7. Those are for a number of reasons, primarily the D and the G and H hangars. The proposed increase is quite substantial, at least in the D category, as far as a percentage increase and a dollar increase from $235 to $350. So we're at $300, which still brings it up fairly substantially, but it keeps it more in line with some of the higher percentages of the different types of hangar space. And then some of our other rates, if you compare our current ordinance to our update, weren't always included in our ordinance. So the I hangars, the K hangars, along with hangar 7, I believe, they were never included in our airport ordinance historically. So now we're bringing those all into the ordinance, and then soon to be the rates and charges schedule for the county, so that they're all published. It's not a surprise, a mystery of how they're formulated, and they're all kind of very clear of what they are. So fiscal impacts of what is going to be proposed on March 17th. Our hangar rental rates, as proposed, generate an additional $62,000 in change in annual revenue over what they're currently being rented out for. Our fuel flowage rate, based upon about 800,000 gallons of fuel, give or take, sold on the airport annually, would, with a 5-cent per gallon increase, would increase about $40,000 in annual revenue. So between the two, just north of $100,000 in annual revenue. Our land rental rates primarily are going to impact new development and revenue potential derive off to new developments on the airport. And then also as existing leases come due, they would then go to the current rate that's established in ordinance, depending on what type of land is being leased. So kind of high level, and I'll let Gordon maybe speak a little bit more to this if there's any questions on that. High level on the airport, we're striving towards becoming self-sustaining as an airport. That's been a major goal of mine since I took over 8 years ago. Currently in 2026, our operating levy that was applied to our budget is the figure behind you, $796,000 and change. Reestablishing our market rates through this initiative brings us $102,000 roughly in additional revenue, so helps close our funding gap by a little north of 10% on the whole. Some other strategic initiatives that we've been looking at, and really a big goal for us in 2026, is to reduce our operating expenses, and our biggest target is our stormwater runoff fees that are paid to the city of Oshkosh. We feel very strongly that is something that's very viable through discussions and negotiations with the city that we've been having ongoing. Near-term land development, just as a snapshot of a 10-acre development, either in the aviation business park or on another parcel of land for the airport. 10 acres at the proposed commercial use rate comes out to about $125,000 in annual revenue. For the entire aviation business park, that jumps up to about $600,000. So there's a lot of potential in additional annual revenue derivation off of new developments. And so that just kind of quantifies what the potential budget impacts of not only this initiative coming forward to you in a couple weeks, but also some other higher priority goals for the airport. And I'd certainly happy to answer any questions, and I know Gordon is as well.
Supervisor Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions, Director. You said we have 94 hangars And you said which we own. Are there hangars out at the airport that we don't own, that are owned by other people?
Correct. That primarily are the 31 land leases. So we lease land to commercial entities, private individuals for constructing their own hangars on the airport. So there's a number of hangar spaces that are privately built under land leases. There's also other developments on the airport, like the Hilton Garden Inn, that aren't a hangar space, but are within those 31 land leases.
Okay, then there are 88 on the waiting list to get a hangar. Do we have room to build those 88 hangars? And I'm asking, because like, my next question was going to be, if we were to build those, how long would someone have to rent those places before they'd pay for themselves, pay for that construction?
So we opened 20 new hangar units in 2024, and then we're scheduled to break ground this spring on another 9-unit hangar facility. Outside of that, serving the full demand of the 88 folks on the list will be difficult in the near term, as expensive as hangars are to construct. But each project's been kind of different as far as the payback goes. In 2024, when we opened the new hangars, we were estimating when we came for funding on that project, just the county's investment will be paid back in just north of 30 years.
30?
Correct,
okay.
for the 20 that we built. Those hangars will be there 70 to 80, 90 years,
Yeah.
the way they were constructed. So they are longer-term paybacks. I won't probably get all the different, nuances of that, but, construction on hangars these days are not cheap.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, I want to first say that I appreciate all the work you've done on this. It's been extensive, and you've taken a lot of heat, particularly a lot of it from me, in this process. Just to go back a little bit of a history, I'm not going to spend too much time because we will debate this, in our business meeting, but I did object to the rents in the new hangars. Even though I had approved those new hangars, we didn't get the rents where I thought they should be going in. That was my main objection to the low rents initially. And it still is. It's the older hangars here where proposed rents and increases have been made that are, difficult to swallow a little bit because those tenants have complained the loudest because they have units with deferred maintenance. So I know you're addressing some of that, and we appreciate that. I will clarify that Facilities Committee was not involved in this, and you did mention that, but I believe County Executive did say that we requested that. We didn't. We weren't involved in that. There was a determination made by Corp Counsel that leasing was not a part of valuation services based on testimony rather than facts, really, overall, and intent. And so, be that as it may, we weren't included in the ability to make a recommendation on who to hire for this. So Finance did that. They hired someone from North Carolina to come up do this rent survey, this market rent analysis. And then there was a dispute that basically this report was outside the scope of appraisal practice. Which it really isn't, and I can prove it because I have the notes that I took with the review appraiser that proves that it is part of appraisal practice. So I won't get into that, but I just want to say it's going to be difficult for me to support this, not because I don't believe rent increases are necessary, but it's how we got to those increases and how the appraiser got to them. They did not support their stated rent increases in the report. They did not do any analysis or, discussion on how they got to those rents. And that's how the report's deficient and why the tenants are so upset. I'll leave it at that. I just wanted to provide a little history. Can I ask you one question, just to conclude here? Did you provide a written scope of work to the appraiser that did the market rent analysis?
I think that's more of a question for Director Kaiser or Director Rauch.
Okay.
We didn't directly contract through the airport.
Did you provide a written scope of work of what was to be done in the market rent analysis?
I believe they did. Again, that would be more of a question for either one of those folks.
scope of work was provided for them, and they did have numerous conversations with airport staff regarding the hangars and the history.
You provided a written scope of work?
I believe that was more in the executive's office realm than it was in the finance office realm.
Okay. If a written scope of work was provided, can this board have access to it?
I will look for that and see if I can get that from the executive files.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Shell. First and foremost, I have absolutely not made up my mind on what to do on this. So I am very much looking forward to discussion today and next week. I truly hope that each of those on the Aviation Committee do weigh in either today or on the 17th. I was looking at your agenda for tomorrow. I don't see that this is going to be discussed again as a matter of your agenda tomorrow. But would it be beneficial? Would I gain any information by attending tomorrow's meeting?
Well, it is on the agenda tomorrow, just to
Oh.
give the committee an update on the Chapter 21, which is what we're talking about, the ordinance.
Oh.
And just, I mean, I think our aviation committee members are here tonight, so they're already hearing the update, but it is on the agenda tomorrow, and probably mostly for any tenants that show up as well, but they've been communicated where we are in the process as well. And so, you know, what I'll say is also offer any county board supervisor the chance to come out and tour the hangars with me if you'd like to see them yourselves. We've done that with the aviation committee and a couple members of the facilities committee. I know there were plenty of complaints from, I think, a small percentage of our hangar tenants, and I don't think all of them are that well founded. I disagree on deferred maintenance. We perform a fair amount of maintenance on all of our hangar spaces. We do annual inspections for routine maintenance, and anytime there's a maintenance request from one of our tenants, we follow up in pretty short order with our internal staff at the airport, and also with help from the facility staff at the county. So I do disagree with a lot of what's been made of the complaints at different committee meetings. I've said that quite a number of times now with aviation and facilities. But I think, generally speaking, you're going to see folks complain about rates going up, no matter what their rationale might be. And I don't think we're being unfair with what's being proposed. I certainly think they're in line with market conditions. Otherwise, I wouldn't be bringing them forward for consideration.
I understand, and I may have misspoke, because what I was looking for mostly was a vote. There is no vote on this tomorrow, correct? It's just an update and discussion?
It was approved by the Aviation Committee in January, 3-2, and it was approved by Facilities on February 24th, 4-1.
That's what I thought I remembered.
Yep.
Thank you. Again, I have not made up my mind on this at all.
Supervisor Bureau?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions deal with one of the assumptions. I noticed you used the Consumer Price Index as far as future pricing. You know, and again, first of all, I applaud all the work. Let me start by saying that. And, you know, the prices in here are very similar to what we got from our benchmarking study, from what I could see when I looked down through the various ones. But as we go forward, Consumer Price Index, how do we get to the Consumer Price Index? Because Consumer Price Index includes food, transportation, and everything else. Is it just because it's well-known and well-publicized? Any thought on that, or how we got to that as the index to use?
Yep. So from an airport perspective, it's a very common metric to provide periodic increases to land rental rates, hangar rental rates, office space rates, those sorts of things. And so it's very common in the aviation industry. Also, in our land leases, which are longer-term leases, 20 to 40-year land leases, they're same intervals, 3 years by a CPI adjustment. And so if CPI is 2% on average over 3 years, it's a 6% increase.
So it's very common, okay.
Extremely common.
The second part of my question is, if we took the rates that are currently in place and applied that same assumption, how would that compare to what prices you're recommending? So in other words, if we have not increased for 5 years, and we take the CPI increases for 5 years against that base price, how would that adjusted base price compare to what we're putting forward? I don't expect you to answer that, but
Well, I got the answer for that, yeah.
if I'm on the other side of the
Sure.
phone, I may ask you that question.
Yeah, just a CPI adjustment from the last time this ordinance, the last time this ordinance was updated was August of 2022.
Yep.
So it's been about 3.5 years. CPI from then to now is about 12%.
Okay. Okay. And one last thing just to consider is whether you do a survey monkey, for example, of people who rent, particularly the hangars, and get a sense of where they're at as far as overall satisfaction, issues that they have, because I often see us struggling based upon a most recent comment versus there might be 9 happy people out there and 1 person complaining. And I just, if we have better customer data to say, here's how people view this. Just
Sure.
a thought. I mean, I'm just
That's
planting
certainly
the seed.
something we can pursue.
Yeah, just planting the seed. Thank you.
Supervisor Hancock Cook.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. I know this has been a huge amount of work for you guys. I just had a couple of suggestions. On the page where you talk about fuel flowage rate, the last change in 2011 statewide average for large airports is now at 19 cents a gallon. We have no idea what you're charging us now unless we go down a page and a half and look at the bottom line. So it would be useful in that sentence to say we are currently charging X.
Yeah,
Because
10
it could be
cents
more-
per gallon.
Right, it could be more,
Going
it
to
could be less.
15.
You get to see it at
Sure.
the bottom of the next page, but if we're not reading ahead, we wouldn't know that. And then I would suggest that in the page where you have your current rates, this big chart, if you would add a column that has the number of units that are in that category, for us, when we consider it, it would be useful to know that and the year that they were built.
Yeah, I know the entire study done by the consultant, which quantifies the number of units and everything else like that, and it's 33 pages, will be included in the board packet for the 17th.
Okay.
And it's been included in aviation and facilities. There'll be probably 4 or 5 attachments on this topic on the agenda for the 17th. And I can certainly put that in the table.
It would be
so
really
it's,
easy if
that's
we
why the
just didn't
table's
have to
trying
go
to
look for it.
synthesize everything in one spot, but I can certainly add that in.
Thank you. That's the 2 suggestions I had about making the data a little clearer.
Supervisor Lux.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering, you said that the consumer price index was 12% since the study was done last. And some of these are much higher than that. And I understand that this is actually an end of document. Is that correct? I mean, these decisions are what you're bringing to us. But I'm wondering why these ones that are very low, like 2.7% increase, can't be like 5, can't be somewhere, I mean, the ones that are 27 are offsetting some, but it just seems really low.
Well, none
And
of this is
still
done.
be-
none-
It would
yeah.
still be less than what was recommended to us if
Not-
it was
yeah.
at 5% rather than 2.7.
What I would stress is that this is a market reset for fair market rent of the spaces we offer. So none of it is really tied to any specific percentage. It's based upon market comps, which the study provides, and then what those similar type of spaces rent for in other locations, and kind of trying to get an average and put us somewhere in the middle, which is what these do. And so the percentage, like the lower percentages are on our eye hangers, which are already at $1,300 and $1,200 respectfully per month. Those are some of our larger hangers, but they've never been, those eye hangers were not in the ordinance prior. So they were on year-to-year leases, and they've been getting adjustments for many, many years. So they are on the high end of our rental spectrum, and that's why you see that percentage being so much lower. But we're trying to not price ourselves out of the market for those tenants that are paying, going up to $1,340 a month on their hangar space. The consultant's recommendation was $1,500, but we disagreed with that rental
The
rate.
difference is still only $65.
I understand.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director Schell. As Director Schell had said, if some folks on the board haven't taken a tour, I was fortunate a number of years ago to take a tour with Chairman Egan. Jim, you do a fantastic job, so I encourage my colleagues on the county board to take a tour, because this will be, contentious. I think the aviation community has been absolutely tremendous advocates. on this, and so I think they'll be here in force, so I encourage everybody to take a tour, find out what that looks like. But essentially, you know, we're really here because the county boards before us continued to kick the can down the road. I think the number that I figured out was like something like one of the hangars, $150 that went up since 1995. So if you can picture, you know, a rent of an apartment or anything going up, you know, $150 in that amount of time, it's, you know, it's not a lot. But, you know, we looked at this at facilities. Like Director Shell said, we asked Mike to take a look, and yeah, I mean, he came up with a lot higher numbers than what Jim had proposed. And you know, again, I think, you know, it's due time that we take a look at this, you know, and to the facts that you have a lot of different areas out there. You have small planes, big planes, and you know, I'm sensitive to pricing people out of the aviation community, but you have a wait list of 88 people. I mean, have you talked to those folks and said, hey, are you willing to pay more? Are you willing to pay rent increase? Have those conversations been had, Jim?
Yeah, those conversations definitely have been had because we always are having a vacancy in hangar space here and there. We preface anybody we're contacting off the waiting list for a new hangar space that this conversation is ongoing with a rate increase. And whatever type of hangar space they're looking for that might be coming open, we mention what the new rate is proposed to go to. And quite honestly, there's been no pushback.
Okay. And then if I have a hangar out there, I mean, can I bring like 15 people out there for EAA instead of buying tickets to EAA? I mean, how many tickets do you get, or you can just come right in there? You've got a hangar?
We do limit it, but you can come out to the airport as long as you're following all of our rules and regulations and our provisions for keeping the airport safe during the event. But folks do have people out to their hangars. I think that's probably pretty well widely known, to have viewing parties for the air shows and things like that. And then, quite honestly, all of our tenants, because it's something that EAA offers, extends to them, all of our tenants get, I forget how many, but they get a few tickets to AirVenture itself. So that's an added benefit. That's something EAA does on their own accord, because there are times where our tenants are inconvenienced a little bit by things associated with AirVenture over the years, different things. But that's just a goodwill thing that EAA does on their own, completely on their own.
Just one final thing, you know, the fourth best GA airport in the United States, I think that's something that we should all be proud of. I'm extremely proud of that, and I think we have a gem in Whitman Airport. Thank you.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know the answer to this, Jim, but I want to ask this question of you in front of everybody here. How many of those 88 that are currently on the waiting list actually have hangars already?
We've got about 12 current tenants that are on the waiting list, either because they're looking for a different hangar space, a bigger one, or they might be looking for an additional hangar space. But we have 12 current tenants.
So it's pretty close to 80 new people that are on the list. I'm not saying exactly, it's close.
76 that aren't current tenants.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of the tour of the hangars that I think all of us on aviation took, and then a few of people that are on my facilities committee went, and I obviously count for both. So I just want to say that if anybody has a chance to go out and do that, the one thing that Director Shaw will do is he will take you to the hangars of the people who actually showed up to complain about their hangars, so you can see the particular hangars that that were talked about in these meetings. So if you go back and watch the minutes, you'll get to see that in person. And one of the reasons that I've voted for this, both at aviation and at facilities, is because the board needs to make a decision on this. As Supervisor Buck was saying, this has been kicked down the road again and again. And the one thing I've seen from this county board since I've been on here in 2021 is that we're refusing to kick things down the road. We're starting to do things. We're starting to look forward. We're starting to be proactive. So we have to make a decision on this one way or another. And I would hope that coming into the next meeting that people would have their minds more made up when they come in. That's not saying that it's a wrong thing to have an open mind, but there's a lot of information out there to go over. And I think if you come into the next meeting not knowing how you're gonna vote. I don't know if you're doing your homework on this issue, because there have been a lot of questions asked and a lot of ground covered on this issue, so, thank you.
Supervisor Swan, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I first came on the board, I did take a tour of the airport, but as Supervisor Hintz just mentioned, if they're going to lead us to specific tenant areas that, or bays that have issues, or the people that have complained, maybe it'd be worthy of another look before next month, or the business meeting if it's possible. Anyway, I had one additional question, and that is, looking at the big picture here, we have about a $218,000 annual deficit at airport now, is that correct? If we're able to implement all of your, you know, your green.
Currently, the levy number
changes?
for the levy number for 2026 is the top number, the 796.
Okay, but let's just say you're able to do all of this, what you said here, it's only 218, right?
If a lot of things happen.
Right, if a lot of things happen.
Goals, sure, goals and initiatives
Okay,
for closing the
so
gap.
probably all that isn't gonna happen, but, you know, one of the things that was mentioned in the facilities meeting by the tenants is, this is 62 grand of an $800,000 deficit that's gonna be erased, but the big occupant out there is EAA. Are we willing to go to EAA to help make us whole? That's a question that needs to be asked on behalf of the tenants, because I think at least the lead tenant in the complaint process has that very concern on his mind. So can you answer that?
I don't think I can answer that tonight, no.
Okay, I just think that's something
EAA
we
has a
need
lease
to-
agreement with Winnebago. They have several lease agreements with Winnebago
Right.
County, and we're both living up to the terms of those existing lease agreements.
Yes,
That's all I'd say.
but they are a multi-million-dollar revenue generator out there. And the question becomes, are they willing to let their home airport run a deficit when they could help? That's my question, and I'll wait for an answer hopefully at some point, before I leave the board, which will be soon.
Sure, just on land leases, EAA pays the airport of Winnebago County approximately $300,000 in annual revenue, and they're due for an increase this year in May on their land lease.
300,000 in annual revenue, that's
For
it?
leasing the land that they do from the county, correct.
Boy, that doesn't seem like much for the amount of revenue they generate out there. You think they'll pull up stakes and leave rather than see their airport gain solvency?
I think that's an unfair question to ask.
Why?
I don't understand how it has to do with the matter at hand, Chapter 21, and our rate increases.
Well, it does, because we're talking about very little rent gain here, or erasure of our deficit by increasing these rents on the, you know, the little guy out there, let's say. Whereas the big guy
Time,
could
Supervisor
easily make
Swan.
us whole. Thank you. That's all I have.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one follow-up question. As I make up my mind, I do agree with Supervisor Buck. I don't ever like kicking the can down the road. And I don't need this answer now, just before the 17th. If someone could reach out, if the board does not pass this, my question is, and then what? So the corrective action or the course of action if the board says no, and that will help me make up my mind. Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a question.
I'd just like to say, you know, the reason we can't get any private businesses to build out there, they have to pay property taxes. And those hangars that we built for $150,000, the property tax would be $3,000. So if the person that's using that hangar had to pay that property tax on top of our rent, they'd be looking at like $7,500. And it takes us 33 and a half years to pay them hangars off. That's on a tax-free municipal bond and the land that we already owned. I mean, I don't believe $450 for a heated 1,200 square foot building is too much to ask. I called, there was a hangar for rent in Outagamie County. It was a 2,500 square foot hangar. They get $1 a square foot, $2,500. We don't have any $2,500 hangars that we're talking about renting at 1,200 square feet, or even we have one for 2,100 square feet for a little over $1,400. I mean, these rates are more than reasonable. Anybody would be happy to rent a brand-new 1,200 square foot hangar for $450. Did you ever see those man caves that they're renting off of 76? They're like basically $1,600 for a 1,400 square foot building that's heated. And you put a plane in there, you can still put your four-wheeler in there, if you can fit your boat in there. Only regulation is you have to have a plane in there. So you have 1,200 square feet, but you also have a storage shed because you can store other things in there, and it all falls under the legal guidelines. So I would urge you next week, or the 17th, to vote for this. And you have to start somewhere. You roll a pebble, you make a baseball. We need to make up $950,000. It's going to be hard to balance the budget in October. And if we don't start somewhere, I mean, you're going to see the Parks Committee coming with a special event fee. We need to raise revenue. We have no more money to get. And if we don't charge people a going rate, then how are we going to balance our budget?
Supervisor Nelson? Nothing?
I got nothing. First time ever.
Supervisor Gabbard?
Me?
Yes.
Finally, okay. I would be remiss if I did not comment on this, since I am the chairman of the Aviation Committee, and I voted against this. And my reasoning was the pilots are more than upset. Not one or two, 94. And I've gotten phone calls, and they were expecting a raise. That's not it at all. It's how the county went about this. You hired a firm under the old regime. The report that the firm made, or the study, is incompetent, to say the least. You spent $23,500 for that study. Jim very nicely was told to raise the rents, and I agree with that, and so do the pilots. But he was to come up with about $80,000. We spent $23,500 for that study. We have a very fantastic airport director who did his own report, and he was paid salary. But this has been a contentious thing. The pilots like that airport. They are aware that things go up. They are willing to pay an increase. But they believe they were not notified sufficiently that this was coming up to the expense percentages. And I've been told that we are sustaining the airport for the pilots. That's hogwash. They have chosen to be a pilot. They are a taxpayer. They're already paying taxes to Winnebago County. I can see from what I have gathered that this will pass. And they have the option of moving to a different airport with brand new hangars. They can go. That's their decision. Some of the people on the list of 80 no longer are living. I know that for a fact. We have some deceased people. Not a lot of them, but some of them. This county is notorious for not maintaining buildings. It's very obvious what goes on. You build a building, you buy a building, you don't maintain it because we have no money for maintenance. That's the conversation. Yes, the airport does do an annual check of the hangars, and when a pilot calls and says, my door doesn't open, my electric is not working, Jim has been more than efficient in taking care of that. It's a fantastic airport, and we should be proud of that airport, because for general aviation airport, it is fantastic. We have not approached the EAA. I don't know why you think they're such a bad character. They have talked about leaving. They spread $225 million economic impact study to this county. That's a lot of money. But somehow, whenever you talk about a pilot, everybody says, oh, they can afford that. It's their hobby. They can afford it. They will afford it. If they choose to leave, they will go to Fondy or to Wapaka. Some have not said anything about doing that, but they will do it. That's their decision. My decision is the budget for the airport is terrible, and it's terrible for other reasons besides the rent. And so we have been told, you've got to come in under budget. Very good, come in under budget, but we have a line item that is very, very high, and this little bit you're getting from the rents will help, but it won't get rid of the big charge against the airport from the city for stormwater. So we are in a stage of negotiating with the city to get rid of some of that.
Time's up, Supervisor
stormwater.
Gabbert.
And we'll see where that ends up. Thank you.
Supervisor Laux.
I believe it's my second time. So I felt like you were dismissive of Supervisor Swan's comments because you didn't feel like EAA had anything to do with the rents. But I feel like it does have stuff to do with, it's not that they have anything to do with one another per se. It's that they both have an impact on how much of a deficit that you're running, or that we're running on the airport. And I understand it's a county airport, so I wouldn't require that it was breaking even, right? But it is quite a deficit. It is a large deficit. And I just wonder who negotiates the contract for EAA. Is it, I'm sorry, Gordon? Is it Gordon, or is it you, or is it us? Do we approve the amount that EAA has to pay? And can we make it higher?
Sure, I'll answer that question. In 1993, Winnebago County entered into the existing lease agreement, the master lease agreement with EAA. That was amended one time in 1995 and a second time in 2019. So we are getting the revenue we ought to get off that lease agreement, and has 16 more years in its term. So either Gordon or Corp Counsel could discuss the nature of lease agreements and how much term we have left, but it was approved by Winnebago County, and most recently in 2019 when we amended it then.
Thank you.
Anyone? Oh, Supervisor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm also on the Aviation Committee, and I also voted against this. And one of my concerns is that there's a lot of misunderstanding, and there's a lot of misconceptions, and there's just a lot that people are not tracking or are not aware of. Just to briefly go through in just a few minutes' time, you know, there were some decisions that were made that predate all of us that kind of made things difficult for the airport. When we walked away from an airline, you know, that at that precise moment in time, Outagamie County Airport and Winnebago County Airport ceased to be the same. And you can see a massive difference between what these two airports are doing, the revenues that they're generating. It's incredibly different. But you see, that's also where the comparisons stop. And so one of my big frustrations, whether it's this report, this hangar rate report that has been brought up a bunch of times, the markets that were used for the hangar rate reports are significantly different than the Oshkosh market. Therefore, that those prices are significantly higher. That's a business thing, right? And I just get frustrated because so many people are missing the business point of it, okay? From an EAA perspective, I would not kick the can too far down that hallway. I have a friend that transitioned, he was with the EAA when they were in Rockford. There's a reason why they're in Oshkosh now, because Rockford got out of control. So tread lightly on that, folks, because again, would you like to be the former location of the EAA? You can talk about the millions and millions that it generates, okay? But again, there's an agreement that's already in place. Again, I would really seriously caution, tread lightly. We benefit in ways that we tend to forget by having that organization here. But the greatest frustration I have about everything is we sit back and we talk about taxpayer levy, and yet we have ignored for 10 years the massive amounts that the city has charged us for water runoff fees. And nothing has been done about that. In fact, I'm on the edge of almost saying that there's been corruption involved with how much we've been spending on that. Can't get the exact figures, but I'm going to estimate that we've probably been overcharged $3 million over 10 years compared to what other airports are spending. And nobody talks about that. Facility hasn't addressed it, legal hasn't addressed it. So I get really frustrated when we talk about just a small piece of this situation, but we're hanging our deficits on the people that are actually one of the guaranteed income streams that we have. So I do get a little bit frustrated when we talk about that. I think it's unreasonable to try to ask 90 tenants to offset $900,000 of deficit. I think that's ridiculous, to be honest with you, just to be straight. There's other things that we need to do a better job of. I personally am not happy with the FBO relationship.
Time's up, Supervisor
And-
Patterson.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're getting off track with a lot of things here. This isn't about the EAA lease rates. This isn't about the stormwater fees. This is about altering these leases, the hangars, and the fuel flowage rates. And according to this, it's $102,899 that those three things are going to adjust, which comes out to 12.5% of the pie. That's a significant part of the pie that we need to fix. We can't fix it all at once. This is one part of the process to get ourselves to solvency. We can't lose the forest through the trees here. This is a part of that process. And again, the EAA and the stormwater are part of this discussion. I agree with Supervisor Patterson that we need to tread lightly when it comes to EAA. I'm not saying we need to let them walk all over us. I'm not saying they are walking all over us. What I'm saying is we don't need to necessarily look the gift horse in the mouth and possibly chase them away. The lease rates, let me ask you this, Director Schell. The lease rates, do they follow county ordinance that we're using for EAA right now?
They follow the terms of the lease agreement,
Okay.
and that started in 1993.
Okay, I just want to get that out there. We weren't held hostage on these. We agreed. We went into negotiations with EAA and we came to these numbers, and this is what we agreed to. Okay, so we ought to hold on. We ought to stand by that. We have that in place. We don't need to start sitting here and questioning. Again, this process is going to be done in steps. This is step one. We will deal with the stormwater fees when we get to that point. We will deal with other things when we get to that point. Let's keep things in mind. Everything is a part of the process, and we can't fix it all at one time. Thank you.
Supervisor Howard Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one piece of information that I would like to get added kind of to this chart that you provided. You've alluded to the fact that many of these rates have been in place for a number of years. Would it be possible to find out how long these rates have been in place? You know, what the current rate is and maybe the year that...
Yeah, the current rates are last adjusted in 2022.
Oh, okay.
And that's on, if you look at slide 2, really after the title slide, on the Chapter 21 history. So that's meant to give you the last 25 years of when the rates and the ordinance were updated and adjusted.
Okay.
Yep.
But, so these, all right. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Supervisor Bureau, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to draw just attention to the airport financial incentives page, which I think, a couple thoughts which may help everyone. From what I can, as I look at this, we are talking about step one being reestablishing market rates, correct?
That's what we're
Right?
here discussing
Okay.
today, correct?
So one suggestion, again, to help us slow people here, that's the box to put around that. That's what we're talking about. The other issues of reducing operating expense, coming around stormwater, near-term land development are other initiatives to help improve the overall P&L, correct?
Correct.
So those are the additional steps that Supervisor Hinz talked about that'll be staged over time. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yes, you are.
So wherever you can to help tell that story in the presentation, I think will be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I don't see anyone else up there. Do you have anyone?
Yeah, I appreciate the questions. I think getting them out tonight will make for a better debate. I'll just say, a couple of things. When we were looking at this, there are 5,100 general aviation airports in the United States, meaning airports that are non-commercial. There are 4 of them in the entire United States that have 4 runways and an air traffic control tower, and we have 3 ARF vehicles with fire equipment. Because we have these things, we also have more expenses. It costs us more to maintain a world-class airport. The only way that we have to capture user fees is fuel flowage and hangar fees from the people who use the airport. They can't use the airport if we don't plow the runways and take care of their immediate areas. The market didn't need a market study when we have 78 people on a wait list to be a part of one of the 4 best airports in the country. None of those other airports in the markets that might be wealthier has an airport as nice as ours. And I think our aviation community is great. It just happens to be, though, that, to Supervisor Hansen's question, if we don't approve this, it'll just be the property taxpayers will pay it. And that's the trade-off. I'll also say this, every general aviation airport doesn't make money. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try. And it doesn't mean that plan that Supervisor Bureau just laid out wasn't a realistic effort to try to do it. This county gets tremendous benefit because of the investment made and the support from Winnebago County for the $230 million of economic activity and output. It's just that the county doesn't derive direct revenue, from that. So I think we'll continue to look at things, but it isn't about, your hangar is worthless as a hangar. Your hangar is of value because it's located at one of the 4 best airports in the United States. That is its value. So it isn't about this hangar versus an airport, a hangar in Wapaka or Fond du Lac. This is a hangar supporting a world-class airport, and we should start treating it like that.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Director Elder up here. This is another one, and it's actually, thematic about kicking the can down the road. I know that this board heard last year in the master plan presentation about wanting to take action and develop a plan to address some of our infrastructure needs as a county. And so, in working with the Facilities Committee and with Director Elder, we wanted to get going on that and utilize some one-time money that we have available to work on a design study to move forward and get this board to be the one that is committed to developing really the beginning of phase 1 heading into the next budget of an infrastructure plan. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Elder.
Good evening. As the county executive said, last fall, we talked about the master plan, and we have not really passed a big decision on what the whole scope of the master plan was going to be for the next 20 years. But what we do have is we have a number of different options that we have. And the building that we're looking at that probably is the best one to start implementing the master plan and facility needs is the highway shop. If you take a look at it in 2021, we took an initial look at the highway shop. We found some initial deficiencies in the office area, the maintenance bays, the truck wash, and in the garage itself, they were identified. At the same time, while we did that study, we found a problem with mold in the office area. And we were working on a schematic plan to address all of their needs. In 2022 and 2023, the first phase of the highway shop improvements took place. The office mold was a priority. And what that basically required us to do was totally gut the office area. And at that time, we worked with the highway department to reconfigure their offices on what they needed to meet their administrative operations. The funding, though, was basically funding to take care of the mold and not do everything that we needed to do for the highway shop. So at the time, there wasn't enough funding to put into, put an addition onto the building to do an enlarged meeting conference room for their public meetings and everything. So that's one of the things that's still outstanding for them. We finished the office reconfiguration. We remediated the mold. The department moved back into the offices in the end of 2023. So then we started in 2022. We did a comprehensive building condition assessment. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to break the habit of doing everything in a knee-jerk reaction. We wanted to find out what buildings needed, which buildings were worthwhile to invest in, which ones were identified as that we should probably replace. And we talked to you all a year or so ago about what was called the facilities condition assessment. And we have a list of buildings that are rated on how good they are and where we should spend our money. The highway shop is in relatively good shape. It's in better shape now that we took care of their office and the water leaking. So we've got that list of buildings to take a look at. The highway shop, once again, is a prime candidate to put an investment into to make it go for another 50 years. Once the building assessment was done, we did a, if you can go to the next one, we did a space needs assessment because we don't want to just do repairs to the building and make a building totally new again and still not have it be functional for the departments. So this gave us the information on what buildings are worthwhile to save, what the departments need to in their buildings to make it work. When the two studies are combined now, we have a path forward on how we can best use our limited resources to get us into an efficient facilities and infrastructure zone for the county and keep us moving down the road so that we're not always doing knee-jerk repairs. So in all the options that we had for the, in the space needs assessment and the master plan that Venture Architects did and we talked about last fall, the highway shop is the only building that isn't moved or isn't suggested to move. So that makes it a prime candidate. You know, we're not going to be spending money on a building that in 20 years is going to be moved to a different part of the county. The space needs for the department are also more pressing. Bob and his people are working in a very cramped building. You'll see a little bit further down, I've got some pictures on it. And this project is well defined. You know, it can be the stepping stone for implementing the rest of the master plan. So some of the improvements that we're looking at are adding on a large meeting conference room for their public meetings, a place that they can have their staff meetings. Their locker room needs to be enlarged, and you know, if you take a look at what we gave them for lockers, I don't know if when you remember back into high school, some lockers were like 6 inches wide and other ones were 12 inches wide. We gave them the 6-inch wide ones. So it's kind of hard for them to put their boots in. It's definitely hard for them to put their foul weather gear in, their overalls, or anything else. So, you know, the staff are having to always carry their stuff with them, keeping it in their cars. So it's an easy way to start forgetting stuff. The maintenance bays are too small for the trucks we've got. You know, if you've seen some of the trucks that we used to have, they were single axle, you know, dump trucks. We've got trucks now that are tri-axles. You know, we've probably added on, what, 10 feet, Bob, to the length of a truck. So, you know, I remember in high school, I used to drive a 1972 Chrysler. That thing was 17 feet long, you know, and it was definitely 7 feet wide. So, you know, if you go and park in a grocery store parking lot right now, that is like parking an aircraft carrier in Menominee Park. You know, it's the same problem that these guys have with their trucks. The maintenance bays are too small. So if you take a look at our trucks, they've got the scraper blades underneath, they have double wing blades on them, and they've got the plows in front. So when you park two trucks next to each other, you can't drop both wing blades. So it's hard for them to do the maintenance when these trucks are out there, and especially during like a snowstorm and something breaks, they got to get in and get out as fast as they can. The truck wash is poorly located. You know, I told you again, these trucks went from single axle dump trucks to tri-axle dump trucks. So they go down, go down the aisles, and you got to make a right turn, 90-degree turn into the wash bay. It's kind of like threading a needle with a big truck. So we've had some close calls with the wash bay, but it makes it really hard for them to do it. Bob has been kind of a reservoir for salt for some of the other communities. So his salt shed doesn't hold enough salt for him all winter. He ends up having to try and get loads of more salt in the middle of winter. And it depends on how the weather's going on where all the salt goes. And sometimes he gets pretty low. So we need to enlarge his salt shed. So here, I've got some pictures now that will kind of show it. Here you can kind of see a tri-axle dump truck. It's not parked straight into a stall. That's so that they can get in there and work on the wing blades when they drop them down. It also is so that they... It also keeps their tail end of the truck out from in the aisle. So, you know, if you've got a big truck that's parked in the way it's supposed to, it's now extended past the end of the parking stall from what they designed back in, I think, the early 90s. Because I think you guys occupied that in 95, 94. So, you know, the design work was done back in 1990. So if we go to the next one, you can kind of see how, you know, the trucks are right at the edge of what you would call the traffic lane. So if you've got trucks with plow blades that are big, they're sticking out in front of you, you know, 3-4 feet in front of you, when you're driving through there, it's real easy to swing a little bit too wide and come real close to hitting another truck. If you take a look at the next one, you know, when they have the equipment and with the amount of the trucks that we have to try and park in the garage, they're starting to overlap doors and overhead doors into the parts store rooms and things like that. So it makes moving around the shop to work on the trucks more difficult. If we go to the next one. You know, here you've got something that's just been developed in the last few years. We're starting to have plow trucks that tow a plow behind them so that they can plow 2 to 3 lanes on the freeway with one truck. A lot of times, in order to have enough space in the garage, they almost have to take the tow trailer off the trucks so that they can park it against a wall and park the truck against the wall, because they can't just pull the truck in there. So when we have a major snow coming, rather than having trucks pre-staged and ready to go, now they have to spend time to move the trucks, move the trailers, hook them all up, load them all up again so that they're ready to go. So and it also restricts access through the aisles. Let's go to another. And here you can kind of see, you know, the trucks, when they pull in as far as they can with it. If they pull in all the way, now the plows are actually in the walkways, and you can't move carts with parts. It's hard to walk there between them. And it partially blocks the doors to the storerooms again. If we go to the next one. They have more equipment than what they can fit in their storage garages. So during the winter, when the covered arena is not used out at Parks and Highways works together and they park their equipment out there. It's covered, but it's still exposed to the weather. You know, the snow's not falling directly on it, but they're still exposed to sub-zero weather. And if they have equipment out there that's needed for snow, you know, now you've got a truck that's sitting out there and it's at 22 below zero. Now you're trying to get a diesel engine started when it's cold. You've got hydraulic equipment. The hydraulic oil is cold. So it takes them longer to get their equipment on the road. If we can go to the next one. One of the other additional options that we could do was, it was talked about potentially having a complex, a county campus out by the Parkview jail area. We could also move facilities out there. We have similar type work. We use a lot of the same tools. There's a lot of synergy that could be between the two departments. And it would put us closer to a lot of our work. I believe the last time I took a look at it, about 60% of our work is in that area of the county. The other 40% is split between Oshkosh Human Services, the courthouse, Neenah, and Fox Cities. So if we would move out there, we're closer to Neenah, we're closer to Fox Cities. You know, we still have to drive to the courthouse and Oshkosh Human Services, but it's kind of, you know, a flip of a coin on where it is that it would be better for us. But this would position us there. We're close to the jail. And, you know, as we talk and we move down the master plan, you know, there may be more buildings that are located out there. You know, one of the things that the master plan showed is that the courthouse can't be used as it doesn't work as a courthouse anymore. And when we built the jail back in 2003, the idea was to move the courthouse out there, but there wasn't the will to move it out of downtown yet. But if you take a look at it, we've done everything that we can to this courthouse to make it as safe and as functional as a courthouse as we can, and we really can't do any more. And with those projects, I think we've probably spent about $10 to $15 million to do it. Had we done that back in 2003, we'd have been probably halfway to the cost of a new courthouse. Let's see. So I've got a picture of kind of what the improvements would be. The first picture, if you take a look at it, this is the cold storage for highways. This is the warm storage, if you want to call it, in their shop. In between is where we would locate the truck wash. And it would be a drive-through truck wash. Not one that they've got to drive, turn the corner, and then try and navigate their way outside the building. So they'll be able to do that. We'd be expanding the salt shed here. We'd be expanding storage space for their equipment in this area. We would be adding on a large public meeting room and a staff conference room for them. And in this area, you can't see it in the building, is where we would be reconfiguring, remodeling their locker rooms, their break room area, and some of their meeting areas. The next picture shows what it would look like if facilities went out there. So we would kind of share space up by their administration area. There was potential that we could maybe even share staff between it in the office. It might help that way. And then we would end up having our facilities, garage and shops and everything alongside their building. Once we do the design work, though, it will it will better define how the actual layout will be. You know, what you're just seeing is just how how we envisioned it could work. It's not necessarily how it's going to work. What we did have, if we go to the next one, is these are our costs. So Venture Architects came up and they gave us a ballpark on what they thought these modifications would cost. Like the highway office addition for the conference room and everything is just under $2 million. The garage addition is just under $11 million. Their truck wash is $1.5 million. The salt shed is about $2.5 million. So for all of the total work for the highway shop, it would be roughly $17 million. The work for to move facilities out there would be about $15 million. So the total cost for both departments would be approximately $32 million. Using a rule of thumb and talking to some of the state people, the best estimate on what it would cost for a design effort, which would be taking it from the ideas of what we've got right now and providing us bid specs and getting us to the point where we would go out to bid, it would cost about 8% of what the total construction costs are estimated to be. So the design work would be about $2.5 million. So what we are looking at doing is going towards the ARPA committee next week and seeing about getting funding through the Spirit Fund to do this. I believe that this kind of follows the intent of what the county board had said about that fund, that it would be used for one-time type projects. It would be used for infrastructure. And this I think kind of fits into that scope of what we wanted the funds that are left in that to be used for. And I'll take any questions that you might have.
I'm just going to make a quick comment. You do not have this presentation on your desk because we had two presentations that we received, and we received an updated presentation on all the presentations tonight. So we had taken the one that we received the very last, so I apologize for that. So we will get you an electronic copy of this presentation and send it out to you so you have that for your records. We'll do that tomorrow morning.
Supervisor Nussbaum?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to add that we can no longer have our meetings there because the conference room is so small.
Supervisor Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did I understand, Mike, that you said that the highway is storing some salt for other communities or other counties? And if that's the case, then he runs out. Why does Bob have to take up space that he should be able to be used for our county for the salt?
I probably misspoke a little bit. Bob buys the salt that he needs for our county. And he's only got so much room to store it. But it depends on how the weather goes. If you're in some of the townships or some of the other cities, sometimes salt is a very hard commodity to get. Even when, for a couple winters ago, when I needed to get salt for my people to do the sidewalks and everything, we could not buy bagged salt. It was not available anywhere. So if the rest of the country has well, look at the East Coast just a couple of weeks ago. All the salt that may have been scheduled to come here now got diverted out to the East Coast. So Bob has planned maybe getting, he gets enough salt to get us through, the first half of the winter, and he's expecting a shipment coming in January. But if the weather is such that he can't get it, his salt shed is too small to hold what he would project for a full year's worth of salt.
And didn't we get a presentation a couple years ago about liquid, like brine?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Something kind of sort of knew that we were accessing. We still use that, the brine?
Yes, yep. But if, I've got Bob back there, he can shake his head yes or no. I believe we take some of the salt that's in our salt shed put it into tanks, add water to it so it creates the brine.
Supervisor Lux.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Um, I, I, so the first question is, if you want to move facilities out there, how old is the facilities building?
Well, we've got several parts of it. I think some of it is from the 1930s, some of it's from the 1950s, and our main office is from the 60s, I think, 65.
Okay.
It's a classic.
Okay. Also, I was out there when you were doing the reconstruction on the was it the highway department or facilities? Anyway, with the mold. And I'm just wondering, I guess the 90s is long ago, but why did it get mold? And can we prevent a new building from getting mold in the future?
The way the highway shop was built is, it was built the same way as like the Walmarts and the other buildings like that. And all of those buildings have got the same problem with water penetrating through the brick facade. During the construction back in the 90s, some of the windows weren't set right, so they weren't shedding the water away from the building. The water passed through the bricks, because brick is permeable. We also found that the exterior wall goes up, but the roof went over it, so there was actually free communication of the air over the wall into the building. So like if it's 85, 90 degrees outside and it's 90% humidity, 90% humidity air was going into the building. The building is air conditioned, so it's condensing and it would be running down the inside of the walls behind the drywall. So it was not something that was, readily seen, but it was the way the building was constructed.
Oh, and it can cause real health problems. And I just want to make sure that if we're building a new building, that we're building it well, so that it'll last a long time. And then my other thing is, what happened to the resolution where we were going to move the spirit funds into capital projects?
We removed it.
Yeah, I remember removing it. I thought it was going to be brought back. It isn't going to be brought back?
So what Supervisor Lulks is referring to is back in either November, December, as part of the revolving loan fund proposal, there was another motion or another part of that was going to allocate the remaining Spirit Fund dollars into the capital budget or dedicate it towards capital projects. We decided not to do that, but we're effectively doing it. I think part of the discussion was leading to where we are now was to do it on a project-by-project basis. One of the reasons we're looking at this is it commits this board to not kicking the can down the road. It gets us ready for planning for the capital budget this fall to be able to move forward with more accurate costs on a plan. And it also starts utilizing the one-time money in the Spirit Fund that I think we would like to wind down, especially when we also have an opportunity fund and when we've got a pretty healthy fund balance. So,
Well, my point is just, isn't this a capital project? And so
like I said, this
it
is
would
exactly
be-
what we
it
said we
would-
were going to
yeah,
do.
It would be assumed that this was coming out of, yeah, okay, so
It's what we said we were going
I'm
to
not
do, though. We said we weren't going to put it all there. We said we were going to do it on an incremental basis like this.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing.
Sounds good. I just,
Supervisor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Elder. 4 years ago, when I first started, we went through that building, and everything you said is a fact that was in that building. It was needed so much stuff then, and the first one we dealt with was the mold. I was on the highway department for 4 years, and we dealt with all this. It's about time that we address this. The mold was the first one, because I cannot believe people lived in there and worked in there. I mean, when you spend that many hours together. But to see the stuff in there, I was in the automobile business, and we build these buildings, and a lot of these things you know, cars change, vehicles change, buildings change. You gotta make these improvements. I couldn't believe when they were trying to wash a car or a truck, you couldn't get in there without hitting the wall almost. What he said is fact. And the other thing that I'm worried about is, again, you know, that was 4 years ago when we had different county members here. Now we have some new ones, and in a couple of weeks, we're gonna have some more new ones. If you don't go there and find out what's going on and take a look at it, you can't vote on it because you don't understand. What he said is a fact. What he talked about is a fact. And if we don't address it, this is the start of it all, of all our other communities. But this is when you gotta get out there, you gotta look at it and see it for yourself, because you can't vote on it not knowing about it. And these pictures are great, but you have to see it firsthand. And once you see it firsthand, you understand that that's a vital part, and we need to address this. We addressed the mold, which I'm glad to say, we have people come for our meetings, there's no room in there for a meeting. We get 20, 30, we have to go back to the administration building. But I mean, take it seriously. And again, I'm just talking because we went through couple times change. We have new board members here, and we're gonna have some new ones. Don't just go a vote without taking a peek at it. If you do not find out about that, you're missing out on that opportunity to know and help us, because this is very important. Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I'll just say I worked there for 24 years, and probably 12 of them were in that building. And when we moved in there, I thought I died and went to heaven. It was a great building. We had 2 triaxles with 2 double wings. Now they probably got about 15 trucks like that. And in order to get in that wash bay, you have to lower the toe on the wing and suck it in. Otherwise, you can't get in there. It's wider than the door opening. That's why when you went and looked there, the top of that's all scratched. And then try to come in a building, and as soon as you get in that warm weather, all your mirrors and windows fog up, and then try to find that parking stall. You know, you need more room. You're trying to put a truck that basically needs about 6 more feet to get it in that stall without basically damaging anything. So you have to be really careful, and hopefully there's not somebody walking there. And the building that facility is in, when we moved out of that building, they said that building should be tore down because it needed a roof, it needed a boiler, it needed windows. They did do some of those repairs, but that building basically was up to be replaced 30 years ago. And we managed to get 30 more years out of it. I urged the ARPA Commission on the 10th to approve this and move these 2 projects forward. We need a truck wash. They have another truck out there, double wall frame, 1 frame section is rusted out of it. Those triaxles today are about $480,000, but there's no way of washing the underbodies. We don't have underbody wash. So it's like if we don't take care of our equipment, then you can just replace it at $480,000 a truck.
No one else, so I thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Outside the building, okay, at least?
And at this time, I am open for adjournment. Motion, we had a second. Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed?